Okay, so are you ready to dive deep into AI today?
Always ready to dive into AI. It seems like there's something new to talk about every day.
Exactly. And today is no exception.
Mhm.
We're looking at DeepSeek R1. It's this new AI model that has everyone talking.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. It's the one that's supposed to be like way cheaper than GPT-4, right?
Yeah, that's the one. We found this super interesting article by 𝗬𝗏, and it breaks down like all the reasons why DeepSeek R1 is making such a splash.
Okay, cool. So what's got you so excited about it?
Well, for starters, DeepSeek R1 is coming out of nowhere. Like, it's
Mhm.
not Google, it's not OpenAI, the usual players,
Yeah.
but it's already making waves being integrated in Microsoft Azure and even adopted by huge IT companies in India,
Huh. That's really interesting. It's not every day that a new player just kind of comes in and shakes things up like that.
right? And like I was saying, it's way cheaper than GPT-4. We're talking like 80% cheaper, which is kind of mind-blowing.
Wow, 80%. That's a huge difference. I can see why people are excited, especially smaller companies and startups. Like that kind of cost saving could be a game changer for them.
Yeah, the article is saying it's because of how efficient their model architecture is and their whole new approach to training the AI.
Okay, so that makes sense. Efficiency equals cost savings, which makes it more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Microsoft is integrating it into Azure, their cloud platform. I
Yeah.
mean, what do you think? Could this be the thing that pushes Azure to the forefront for businesses who want to use AI?
It's a smart move for sure. Combining a powerful AI model that's also super affordable with their cloud platform, I think it's a really attractive proposition for businesses, especially those that might be hesitant to jump into AI because of the cost.
Right. And I mean, it puts pressure on AWS and Google Cloud to come up with a response,
Yeah.
like maybe their own cheaper AI models, or, maybe they'll try to partner up with someone.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be interesting to see how they respond. It's like a chess game watching how the big players react.
For sure. Okay, so we've got the cost effectiveness and this Azure partnership, but then there's another layer to this. Big Indian IT companies like TCS and Infosys are already using DeepSeek R1. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. The Indian IT sector has always been a major player in outsourcing, and with DeepSeek R1, they can be even more efficient and cost effective.
Yeah, so they can really solidify their position on the global stage.
Exactly. I think this is going to have a huge impact on the global outsourcing landscape.
Yeah, it's exciting to see what that'll look like. Okay, so another thing that stood out in the article was DeepSeek R1 being open source.
Yep.
And they were talking about how that's a big advantage, especially for European companies with the whole GDPR thing. Can you explain that a little bit? What's the connection between open source and GDPR?
Sure. So open source basically means that the code behind DeepSeek R1 is available for anyone to see and tinker with. You can examine it, understand how it works, even modify it if you wanted to.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And for GDPR compliance, that's huge because it means companies can actually show how the AI model is handling personal data, which is super important for transparency and accountability.
Okay, so it's like you can actually see what's going on under the hood. You're not just trusting some mysterious black box.
Exactly. And that can be really reassuring for companies, especially those who are worried about data privacy.
Gotcha. So the article mentions DeepSeek R1 being used in all sorts of fields. Healthcare, finance, you name it. It seems like the potential is pretty limitless.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And you're right about the wide range of applications. Like in healthcare, DeepSeek R1 could be used to analyze medical images, help with diagnoses, or even personalized treatment plans. And in finance, we could see it used for things like fraud detection, algorithmic trading, personalized financial advice. The possibilities are vast.
Wow, that is impressive.
Hmm.
So putting it all together, we've got affordability, we've got the Azure partnership, we've got these big companies adopting it, we've got the open source aspect. Where do you think all this is headed? I mean, what does it mean for people like us who are working in a world that's increasingly driven by AI?
Well, I think DeepSeek R1 has the potential to really disrupt the AI industry. And like we've been talking about, it's because it addresses some of the biggest barriers to AI adoption, like cost and transparency. And I think for businesses that are quick to adapt and integrate this technology into their operations, they're going to have a serious advantage.
So what you're saying is we can't just sit back and wait to see what happens.
Right. We need to be proactive and think about how we can use DeepSeek R1 or other technologies like it to our advantage. And, that's something for everyone to think about. Like for our listeners in the US, what are some ways you could pilot DeepSeek R1 on Azure to maybe reduce your costs or, improve your scalability?
Yeah. Or for our listeners in Europe, how could they take advantage of that open source framework to make sure they're compliant with GDPR? What about our listeners who are part of the Indian IT sector? How can they leverage DeepSeek R1 to stay competitive?
Exactly. There are so many possibilities. And it's important to be thinking about these things now because AI is evolving at an incredible pace, and DeepSeek R1 is just one example of that.
Yeah, so thinking bigger picture here, AI is changing so rapidly. What kind of skills or knowledge do you think will be most valuable for people to have moving forward so that they can make the most of these amazing tools?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that we all need to be thinking about. As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives and work, it's not just about knowing how to use these tools. It's about understanding how they work, what their limitations are, and what their impact might be.
Totally. It's like we need to be informed users, not just passive consumers of this technology.
Exactly. We need to be able to think critically about AI and its implications.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of DeepSeek R1. And remember, keep learning, keep exploring, and stay curious because the world of AI is only going to get more exciting from here.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be following AI.
Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.